Time now for Michigan's #1 outdoor radio show, Mike Avery's Outdoor Magazine. Mike Avery has covered the outdoors in Michigan for more than 4 decades, and that tradition continues today. Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Jay's Sporting Goods, the Eider Insurance Group, Angler Quest Pontoons and Polar Craft Boats, the Forward Corporation, Primal Outdoors, Security Credit Union, Garber Chevrolet, Brenton USA Hunting Rifles, and by Michigan Brand Meats. Now, here's Mike Avery.
Well, thank you, Ken Hunter, for that introduction, and welcome to another edition of the Outdoor Magazine radio show here on the Outdoor Magazine radio network on more than 30 radio stations across the great state of Michigan. Yes, indeed, this is a radio show, and it feels good to be back in the studio after taking a week off. Now, I didn't really take a week off from the show. You know, we did some time shifting and produced shows ahead of time so I could cover a little bit of an adventure that I had. More on that in just a minute. But first of all, hey, it's Father's Day weekend. Happy Father's Day. If you are a father, happy Father's Day to you. I want to wish my dad, who is no longer with us, but if he's listening, and I don't know, I mean, what's it going to be like up there or out there, wherever it is? I don't know, but if you can hear me, Dad, happy Father's Day. Miss you here. Happy Father's Day to my father-in-law, Jury, my son, James. Happy Father's Day to me. It's, I don't know, I hope you get a chance to do what you want, whether that's fishing, whether that's golf, whether that's laying around the backyard with a beer in your hand, whatever it is. I hope you have an enjoyable Father's Day weekend. So I said we were doing some time shifting, right? We did some time shifting so I could go north to Ontario, Canada. The plan was to bear hunt with Ron St. Louis of Northern Wilderness Bear Outfitters. It's a trip I look forward to every year. I usually go up in August. This year I had to do a June trip. At the last minute, I got a phone call from Ron St. Louis of Northern Wilderness Bear Outfitters. He said, Mike, he said, the fires are so close to town, I have to cancel my hunts. Now, I will admit, until 2 days before I was supposed to go up there, when people were talking about the Canadian fires, I thought they were talking Quebec. I thought they were talking Alberta. I didn't know there were fires burning in Ontario, and I certainly didn't know there were fires burning near White River. I mean, as close as like 7 kilometers from White River. I said, Ron, that's terrible. And I'm feeling bad for me, but I'm heartbroken for Ron because he's got all these hunters coming up and he's got to tell them to stay home. Because the Ontario ministry said, Ron St. Louis, you cannot take your hunters into the bush. That area you want to go into is off limits and you are not allowed to go back there. You can't even get back to your baits. Oh, man. And again, I was disappointed. But it is what it is, right? I mean, you can't fight Mother Nature. Well, boy, have we learned that. You cannot fight Mother Nature. He said, Mike, if things change, is your schedule flexible at all? Can you come up here at the last minute and maybe, go to a different area if the fire's whatever? I said, yes, I want to get up there. Next day, he calls me and said, guess what? The winds have switched. The fires are no longer threatening the town. They're still burning, but they're not burning in the area where my baits are. Do you want to come up? I said, oh, baby, do I ever want to come up? So I headed north. Now, it was kind of weird because as I was driving north, I hit the smoke from the grayling fire. And I thought, man, is this a sign of things to come that I'm going to see up in Ontario? I get to the Straits. It's so smoky at the Straits, I can't see the top of the Big Mac and I can't see Mackinac Island. I thought, is this a sign of things to come? I get to the Sioux. The Sioux is smoky. I thought, man, this is going to be an interesting trip. Turns out, though, the smoke I was seeing in Michigan and in the Sioux was the residual smoke that had blown from the White River and Wawa fires over into that area. So the closer I got to White River, the better it looked. The skies cleared up, there was no smoke, and it was beautiful. So I hunted that first day we drove up there. I drove up there. The bait, let's see, had I hunted this bait before? I had. This is a bait that I had hunted before. At this point, I've probably hunted 30 different baits up there. It was about 40 miles back into the bush from the city of White River, the town of White River. You're driving logging roads to get out there. So it's not like it's a 2-track all the way out there. It's a logging road. But it's kind of rough, and it's muddy if it's rainy, and it's dusty if it's not rainy, and it's kind of an adventure. So I set up my Wraith 270 see-through ground blind from Primal Outdoors, my go-to blind, the blind that I deer hunt out of, the blind that I bear hunt out of, the blind that I turkey hunt out of. I set that up over the bait. It was about 25 yards from the bait. And I'm ready to rock. And I get in there about 4:30, 5 o'clock, thinking it's going to get dark about 9:30. So that's a good long sit, right? Turns out I still had shooting light that far north at 10:15 at night. I don't know what the official shooting hours were, but I could have shot until I could have seen the animal until about 10:15, which seemed pretty weird to be hunting that late. I hunted that bait the first night, didn't see a thing, which is not a big deal. Oftentimes that's the case. I hunted that bait the second night, didn't see a thing. Now I'm starting to get concerned because I had planned on doing a 3-day hunt. I told Ron going up there that I am prepared to shoot a smaller bear. Would I like to shoot a big bear? Yes. Have I shot several big bears? Yes. But if I need to, Ron, not if I need to, if the opportunity presents itself at a smaller bear and I haven't seen a bigger bear, I will shoot it because I want to come home with some bear meat because I love bear brats on the grill, and so do a lot of my friends and family. Second night, nothing on that bait. So now Ron says, okay, let's make a move. So we moved over to a different bait, and I'm thinking tonight's the night because that bait had been hit. Bear hunting over bait's a mind game. It's like a chess game. Are they going to come in when you're there? Are they going to come in overnight? Are they going to come in the middle of the day? So the third day, I switched up to a different bait. Sat on that one for 6 hours, nothing. I said, okay, Ron, I'm willing. I want to give it one more day. So he said, okay, go out to the bait that you set on last night. I went out there at 10 o'clock in the morning. I hunted that bait midday from 10 o'clock in the morning till about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Nothing. He said, we're going to switch it to one last bait. It's closer to town. It's actually the same bait that Nick Grillo of Michigan Brand Meats had shot a bear on a couple of days earlier. But he said, there's multiple bears on this bait. So I hunted the one bait from 10 o'clock in the morning till, 3, 4 in the afternoon. Probably 3 o'clock. I took an hour off to come in and just kind of, get up and move around and stretch out and whatever. Went back into this other bait closer to town, like 5 o'clock or so. Probably 4:30. Got set up over this bait. This is again, I'm sitting in that Wraith, looking straight at the barrel. It's a 20-yard shot. Now, Nick had hunted this bait before, and he says, the bears always come in from the left. So I'm watching from the left. I'm not moving. I'm not breathing. It's like, okay, if it doesn't happen tonight, it's not going to happen, and I really want a bear. About 8 o'clock, from the right, a bear comes sneaking in. Now, you know that I love bear hunting, and one of the reasons I love bear hunting is I love to see bears up close. I am fascinated by bears. I think they are beautiful critters. And I've shot enough of them that I'm not an expert at judging them, but I have a pretty good feel for how big a bear is. There is nothing that'll give you ground shrinkage more than a bear. You might see an animal come in and go, oh, that's a nice bear. That's a 250-pound bear, 300-pound bear, and shoot it and walk up on it and have it be 125 pounds. So that's one scenario. In my case, this bear that walked in, I knew he was not the biggest bear that I had ever had on a bait. I knew that he was on the small side. And I didn't care. I watched that bear come into the bait. I got some video of him. I watched him come in, tip it over. I watched him wander around there. I'm looking at him. I'm judging him. And I said, you know what? He's not a trophy bear by book standards. But Avery, you've sat here for 4 long days. You want to go home with bear meat. Is this an animal you want to shoot? And I made a conscious decision. Yes, indeed, I do want to shoot this animal. I waited until he got in just the perfect spot. I laid the crosshairs of my scope. I'm shooting a 10-point crossbow. I laid the crosshairs of the scope right behind his shoulder. I waited till he turned just right. I knew he was a boar. I waited till he turned just the right angle. I pulled the trigger. The arrow went off. The lighted nock zips through the air. It hit the bear a little bit high. The bear runs off. I thought, am I a little too high on that thing? About 5 seconds later, I get my answer. I hear the death moan. If you are a bear hunter and you have ever heard that, you know what I'm talking about. It is a very eerie sound, but it's a rewarding sound because you know you've got a dead bear. So recovered the bear. The bear is now at Michigan brand meats getting made into brats, and I am a very, very happy guy. You can see a picture of that bear on my Facebook page. You can see it on my Instagram feed as well. Now I'm back on Saginaw Bay, and I'm chasing my beloved walleye. So all is good in the world. I shot a turkey this spring, I shot a bear this summer, and now I'm chasing walleye on the angler quest. It doesn't get any better than that. We'll take a break here at the Outdoor Magazine Show. When we come back, Bill Hahn of Jay's Sporting Goods with some interesting news. Then Kris Duerson of Rapid River Knives. In our second hour, we're talking bow fishing with Jesse Hurst, Chad Stewart from the DNR, Chief Dave Shaw of the DNR. And in hour 3, Fish with Jim Outfitters, Jim Chamberlain, and wild game chef extraordinaire Dixie Dave Miner. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine Show in Alpena on WZTK 105.7 FM. You can hear us in Traverse City on WTCM 580 AM and north of the bridge in Manistee on WTIQ 1490 AM 95.3 FM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Boning Archery. Michigan-based Boning has been a leader in the archery industry since 1946. They continue to come up with new products, new manufacturing processes. You know, I was out there in Ontario with my high-tech crossbow rig, and I had a Boning quiver on there. But they make products for target archers. They make products for bow hunters, traditional archery, compounds, crossbows, you name it. The folks at Boning can take care of you. And by the way, they are a Michigan-based company. Their website, boning.com, BOHNING.com. And as a bonus, you can get Boning products at Jay's Sporting Goods. You know Jay's Sporting Goods, Michigan's original family-owned outdoor superstore. 2 stores, one in Gaylord and one in Clare. I have a long relationship with the folks at Jay's Sporting Goods. I'm fascinated by their story. I mean, it was started by Jay Poet. He was the late Jay Poet. He's no longer with us. He started wheeling and dealing guns and equipment out of the back of his car at Dow Corning in Midland. You can't do that these days. But back then he could. And look what it has evolved into. 50 years in business. Bill Hahn is a good friend of mine, but he's also the buyer for the hunting department at Jay's. And he's with us now on the Outdoor Magazine phone line. Bill, welcome back to the show. Welcome back to the show. How are you?
Great, Mike. Thanks for having me. Doing real good. It's a fun time of year.
Oh, well, I bet it is. And it's probably a busy time of year. Or have all of your decisions for the fall been made months ago?
Ideally, but people keep coming out with stuff mid-year and throwing a monkey wrench into my plan, so I have to keep refiguring things.
What is your job there, Bill? Are you actually the person who decides what goes on the shelves in the hunting department, on the racks in the hunting department?
Yep, exactly that. Yep, I work with the manufacturers and the sales reps and try to predict what's going to be the next trend in our industry and our passion in these categories that we enjoy so much and try to get it right.
A lot riding on your decisions.
Yeah, you could say that.
There is. I mean, really, there's because you have the financial aspect, and then you've got the demand from the customers. If somebody hears about something that's hot in the hunting world, they expect to be able to come to Jay's and get it. And if for some reason they can't, that's disappointing all the way around.
Oh, exactly that. And in this day and age, with social media, with such a strong medium that it is, and YouTube videos out there, somebody comes out with something and does an advertising push on their own on those platforms, all of a sudden I'm getting asked for a product I've never heard of, let's say, and now I got to find out what that is and say, well, hey, there's a demand for it. We need to have this for the customer.
And that, to me, is an interesting situation, because if somebody is good at marketing but not necessarily good at manufacturing, they can create a need for a product that maybe is not the best product out there, but people want it because they've heard about it.
I think that's exactly the case, and we've seen it happen where some companies are, as you put it, very good at marketing, but maybe not as good as at manufacturing, and they come out with a product and create this hype, and people want it, and they get it, and they're disappointed. And then ultimately, if they bought it from us, they're disappointed with us because we sold it to them. So it's something to really scrutinize and to really do some good fact finding and digging. And, I used to be a little more risky in taking chances on pioneering products that we've never heard of before. Now I kind of wait back sometimes, and I'll say, well, we'll just see what it does this season. We'll see what the demand really is. Follow this trend a little bit from a distance before we invest in it, because I don't want to disappoint our customers, because if they're buying it from us, we're going to stand behind it. So it's important to me that I believe in the products that we're selling.
And everybody in the outdoor industry wants to be in Jay's Sporting Goods. I know your phone rings off the hook. I know people want to come in the store to meet with you. They want to be in Jay's.
Well, that's a wonderful compliment, and I hope we can continue to earn that trust, and that they trust in that tradition that we've created or tried to be part of in the last, 52 years.
Bill, how did you end up in this spot? You've been at Jay's for a long time now, but you didn't start in this role, I'm sure.
No, as I started in '97 here, so I've been here 26 years. I started selling shoes in the athletic department at the time, as I was finishing up college, and fell in love with this place. I love the outdoors. Came here after I moved here from Pennsylvania, and said, I want to be a part of this. This is a pretty cool place. So luckily they took me as I was finishing up my college degree. And when I got done with my college degree, some more doors opened here, and I said, well, I'm glad I got that degree, but I'm not going to use it, because I'd rather stay here and build my life and career in this place and be part of something bigger than myself that believes in the same passions and desires I do in life.
I've heard a similar story from a lot of the people at Jay's. That says a lot.
There's a lot of us around. Some of my closest friends, we've been working together for 26 years now, and we have similar stories. So there's something magic about this place, and I think it all stems from the Poet family.
Do you have a chance to get out and enjoy outdoor adventures? I mean, a lot of times, people get into the business of the outdoors because they love to hunt or fish, and then they get so busy and so tied up, they don't get a chance to hunt or fish anymore.
Boy, that is very true. When I was the manager of the archery department, you love bow hunting, so you want to be part of that, so you get involved in it. Well, you spend all your time fixing the bows of the guys that are out doing the thing that you want to be doing. So there is I remember we all jockeyed for vacation. I'm taking my time this week because I've been here for the last 8 weeks fixing bows, and I need to get out in the field. So there is some of that. But now, as things have changed, and I'm in a different role than I was then, some different opportunities do present themselves, and I do get to enjoy the outdoors.
Today's gear and equipment has evolved so much. I mean, I look at the gear my dad used when he would go out, and he was very successful with it, and he enjoyed it, and he harvested a lot of fish and game, but it was very simple, very basic compared to what we have today. Has this technology and evolution made us better outdoorsmen and women, or allowed us to enjoy the experience any more than our dads did?
I think there's been a dumbing down, to be honest with you. And I hate to say it, but I'm going to bring up two different points, and I don't want to, touch a nerve, but I just think this is an observation that if everybody steps back and looks at, they might be able to see the validity of my argument here. If you look at trail cameras, for one, there's trail cameras out there now that take a picture of the subject animal They'll categorize it. They will decide if they should send the picture to you on your phone or not, based off if it's your target animal or on your hit list, or if it's the buck you're hunting, and it'll record the conditions, the moon phase, the barometric pressure, all these things, and create an algorithm that says, when these conditions happen, this deer shows up X amount of % of the time. Okay? So I say all that to say I have guys now that are like, well, I'm not going to hunt today because I know the conditions aren't right, and when these conditions are met, that deer is going to be there. So I think we're relying on technology to a degree where we're losing some of our skills, our woodsmanship, our field skills, our powers of observation, and just getting out there and putting the work and the time in because we want someone to tell us when to show up and harvest the animal. And I think a similar thing almost with fishing, with some of these great advances in technology with side imaging and all this cool stuff where you can pull up to a spot and kind of scan an area and see if there's fish there or not. And if they're not, then you move to the next spot, or you see it and you keep moving towards it and you keep casting it 100 times till he finally bites. Without that stuff, you have to just put the time in and do the work.
That's... Well, I can't argue. I can't disagree with anything you've said. That's a very interesting observation. And a guy from with your experience and position, it's a very valid observation. Then what do you do when you see this high-tech stuff coming in the door or wanting to come in the door, even with your concerns about, again, no disrespect intended, but dumbing down our hunters and anglers? If your customers want it, you have an obligation to put it in the store, don't you?
Oh, I certainly do, and it's great technology, and it's a wonderful tool, and I use them myself, so I'm not bashing those things. Again, I just wanted to make an observation where I think if we allow those things to dictate our outdoor experience, or if we're going to even participate in the outdoors that day, that's where I start to have a concern. But I think those are wonderful tools, and we want to be on the cutting edge of those things, of technology and technological advances in our fields, and have those things here available to our customers because we're excited about those things too.
Yeah, I love that stuff. I love the outdoors, but I'm a geek at heart. If it has a screen or it does some kind of a reading, I'm all in. Give me a screen, give me a technology that I can use in the outdoors, and it combines two of my passions.
Agreed. Same here.
So, what do you see? The state of the outdoor industry. I mean, we went through COVID. There was a huge demand. You couldn't get product. Now we're a couple of years out, I hope. What do you see these days, Bill?
Well, product's not an issue now. That is all caught up, in fact, to a fault, where all that stuff that was coming in finally made it here. And in the meantime, I had to order different stuff because I couldn't get the original stuff. Now I got all the stuff. So a lot of stores are over inventoried, or there's a lot of stuff out there. So the pipeline is full again. When it comes to ammunition, which was another big void, that seems to be also is caught up for the most part. The biggest thing I see right now, when everybody went out and bought things during COVID and had a new love of the outdoors, and people were spending money because they were getting subsidized from that terrible stuff that was going on. I'm seeing a lot of things come on the market for sale, like they did camping for a couple of years, and yeah, we did it. Now we're moving on to the next thing. Or we bought a side-by-side. Yeah, we did it. Now we're moving on to something else. So I'm seeing a lot of turnover on that product, but I'm also seeing a lot of people tightening their belt a little bit now because things have settled back down. The economy is not the most stable, depending on who you talk to. There's just a lot of uncertainty, and I think a lot of mistrust with where the direction we're going and where we're going to be in the next year or so. So I think people are tightening up a little bit. I'm seeing that in some of my big categories. My sales are slightly off. So I don't know if that's a precursor or a predictor, but we're just trying to watch things real closely and be as agile as we can and have inventory, but have the right inventory at the right time.
We're talking with Bill Hahn of Jay's Sporting Goods, jaysportinggoods.com, jaysportinggoods.com. We got to take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine Show. When we come back, some interesting news, I think some great news about a product line, or a lineup of products from a company I work with that you can now get at Jay's. More after the break right here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine Show in Battle Creek on WBCK 95.3 FM. You can hear us in Port Huron, WPHM 1380 AM. And north of the bridge in Iron Mountain, WMIQ 1450 AM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by the Linwood Beach Marina and Campground. I love Linwood Beach. Great facilities, great people, great location, great fishing. I've been working very closely with the folks at Linwood Beach for the last few weeks, on my angler quest, and they have been just outstanding to work with. They hosted the Walleye for Warriors event last weekend on Saginaw Bay. They basically opened up their marina, they opened up their campground, said, come on in, we want to celebrate and recognize our vets. What a great thing for the folks at Linwood Beach to do. I would encourage you to check them out. Their website is linwoodbeachmarina.com. That's linwoodbeachmarina.com. If you want to launch your boat and be close to the fishing grounds on Saginaw Bay, they have a great launch. They have a full-service shop, and they're great people. linwoodbeachmarina.com. Speaking of great people, I'm talking with a great person right now, a good friend of mine. His name is Bill Hahn of Jay's Sporting Goods, jaysportinggoods.com. Bill is the buyer for the hunting department there. And Bill and I have been talking the last couple of weeks about what I think is a very exciting situation going on at Jay's that involves a mutual friend of ours and a mutual company that we work with. Bill, why don't you tell me more about that?
Well, I think you're referring to Primal Outdoors with our mutual friend Bob Ransom. I've worked with Bob for years and years when he was with different companies in the past, and when he started Primal a few years ago, his program was such that I had to bring more in than I could possibly do to get going with them. But opportunities have presented themselves where now we're able to stock some product, and I'm really excited to be able to offer that because Bob has been an icon when it comes to the tree stand and blind business. Yeah. Those in the industry know him well and know the type of products he puts out. So we're excited to be able to offer the products now under the Primal Outdoors moniker, Primal Tree Stands and Primal Blinds. So first thing I did was get a hold of you because I know you've been working with Bob and you've been using the products for a number of years. I'm like, hey, guess what, Mike? We can finally work together on this now, too, because we're going to be able to sell them.
Oh, I'm excited about that. So Primal Outdoors products now at Jay's Sporting Goods, both stores, Bill?
Absolutely. Yes, sir.
Both stores. So the Wraith 270 see-through ground blind that I love so much, that is my go-to blind, you don't have that one because the Wraith is actually being replaced by the Vision blind. It's the same as the Wraith, but a little bit different camo pattern and the addition of brush pockets. So you can get that see-through blind there. I think you've got stands in some of the cameras as well, Bill?
Yes, on the stands, because I was late getting to put these in this year and I already had a bunch of inventory, I'm really focusing on their 22-foot Mac Daddy Deluxe, which I think is a fantastic ladder stand. With the truss system that you spoke of, it's just a big man-and-a-half deluxe full grand poobah of ladder stands.
Well, they call it a man and a half, but you and I both know it's a roomy stand for one person. It's a big one-person stand, but that jaw and truss system, I didn't fully understand this until I used it and saw the way that this thing locks into a tree. I'm a big sissy when it comes to going up a tree stand, but the way this thing locks in, it's so solid that I feel completely comfortable up there. I'm glad to hear that you're going to be carrying those, Bill.
Well, that's one thing that really spoke to me was the safety feature of these stands, because oftentimes that's when accidents occur when you're putting these things up. And so many of the traditional ladder stands of the past have a T-bar you strap to the tree, and then you climb this ladder that's basically free hanging at the top. When you get to the top, you have to lay on the platform and try to swing a ratchet strap around to you and catch it and connect it. All that's gone with this system. You are safe and secure before you leave the ground because of the way this thing operates. And it's fantastic and phenomenal, and it's been a game changer. If you haven't seen it, I suggest customers to get on their website and check out how it works, or we'd be happy to show you how it works up here at our stores with the Mac Daddy. But it is from a safety standpoint, I feel much better putting our customers in a stand with this type of technology so they can enjoy the outdoors for years to come.
Yeah, it's the real deal. And I am so happy that we can now get Primal Outdoors products at Jay's Sporting Goods in Clare and Gaylord as well. And I've been thinking about this, Bill. There's got to be, I don't want to talk out of school here, but there's got to be something we can do in the future to kind of work together, all three of us. So let's talk more about that offline and see what we can come up with, maybe some kind of a promotion, encourage people to come into the store and check these products out. I
would be full support of that.
All right, Bill, always a pleasure. Appreciate your time. I'll let you get on with your day, and we'll talk again soon.
Thanks for having me, Mike.
Bill Hahn of Jay's Sporting Goods, jaysportinggoods.com. jaysportinggoods.com is the website. Check out their two superstores, one in Clare, the original outdoor superstore, and their other outdoor superstore in Gaylord. The addition of the Primal Outdoors products to me is a very, very big deal. You know, I love that Wraith 270 see-through blind, now replaced by the Vision blind, and that 22-foot Mac Daddy that Bill was talking about, the jaw and truss system. You've got to check this out. If you are going to hunt out of a ladder stand, I really would strongly encourage you to check this out because it is the safest and most stable ladder stand I think I have ever hunted out of. Speaking of Primal Outdoors, Bob Ransom, the guy behind Primal, we are tentatively planning this Wednesday night coming up to do a Wednesday night live on Saginaw Bay, walleye fishing with Mr. Angler Quest, Brad Dupuis, and Bob Ransom of Primal Outdoors. Now, the winds at this point are calling for pretty strong northeast winds. I don't know if we will be able to do it or if we will have to push it off for a week, but that's something to keep an eye on. A Wednesday night live with me, Bob Ransom, and Brad Dupuis on Saginaw Bay. We'll take a break. When we come back, I think we're going to talk with Kris Duerson of Rapid River. We'll see how his cell signal holds up here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Caro on WKYO 1360 AM and WIDL 92.1 FM. You can also hear us in Houghton Lake on 98.5 WUPS, and you can hear us north of the bridge in Newberry on WNBY 1450 AM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine brought to you by VersaSkins. Michigan-based VersaSkins. Just change your skin for the season you're in. Why buy several different sets of hunting clothes when you can buy one good quality set and snap on and zip on an outer layer of a different camo pattern? Paul Perone has come up with a great concept. I would encourage you to check it out. Their website is versaskins.com. That's versaskins.com, and they make product in large sizes, plus sizes too. So if you need those, check out the website versaskins.com. All right, you hear this sound right here? This is a sound you might hear every week, right? That is the sound of my Rapid River knife opening. I carry a Rapid River knife with me in my pocket all the time. I love Rapid River knives. I got a picture from Kris Duerson, the owner of Rapid River, and I thought, man, we got to get him on the air to talk more about this. Kris got a monster mountain lion out west a while ago. The mount is back. It's in his showroom, and we think it's a good reason to stop by and take a look at it. And Kris is with us now, I hope, on the Outdoor Magazine phone line. Our signal's a little squirrely, but let's give it a try. Charlie, Kris, good morning. How are you?
I'm good, Mike. How are you?
Pretty good. Pretty good. I'll be better if your signal holds up.
Yeah.
So listen, the picture you sent me is beautiful, and I suspect that new mount there in the showroom of Rapid River Knifeworks has got to be very impressive.
Yeah, it's absolutely I mean, of that animal. It really is. It's bigger than I am. It's bigger than most people. It's bigger than a deer. And it's a cat. It's extremely impressive. And my taxidermist hit an absolute home run with the mount. It's gorgeous.
And that's just one of several mounts. Now, it's probably the most impressive, and it's certainly the newest, but your showroom there, your Rapid River showroom on US 2, just east of Rapid River, is filled with mounts like this. You've built quite a facility there, Kris.
Yeah, I've currently roughly about 275 mounts inside the main factory showroom. Yeah, very high quality mounts. I just got that bear back too. I'm not sure if you saw that, but
oh no, I didn't.
Bear on that's climbing the tree, and yeah. So lots to look at in there. Every time people come in, they and say, "Well, when did you get that?" I've had it for 4 years. You've been in 25 times. You've never seen. So you always you see something new every time you go in there.
Well, the mounts are a good reason to stop by the showroom and check it out. But the real reason to come in there is to check out your lineup of knives. I talk about your products every week, Kris. I think, handmade by craftsmen in the UP, lifetime guarantee. I think a knife is the most valuable tool that a person can carry. I reach for mine several times a day.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I don't go anywhere without a pocket knife. I mean, it's amazing to me that the number of customers that we get that come in, and that's what they have to have. They have to have a pocket knife. They left home. They're on vacation. They forgot the pocket knife. They're buying a pocket knife. They can't go without it. But yeah, we've got everything from pocket knives to salmon fillet knives and right to camp axes and kitchen cutlery. So. And everything in between. So, yeah, we have a huge selection right this is the best time of year probably to get the best selection because as it gets busier, we start, having trouble keeping up with. And by Christmas time, we won't have anything left. So there's a lot of Christmas shopping going on right now.
That's crazy. I can't even start to think about Christmas yet, but I appreciate what you're saying. And I think it's cool, too, that these things have a lifetime guarantee. Honestly, Kris, I figure that if I buy a knife from you, it's something I'm going to pass down. I mean, my kids are going to enjoy using this knife that I enjoy so much now.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's We just had a guy the other day that came in and he had bought a pocket knife 3 or 4 years ago, and one of the handle scales on it was starting to come off. And it's a wood, and the wood shrinks and expands, and it bends and curls, and I told the guy, I said, "Well, give us 10 minutes and we'll fix it." We used a real heavy duty epoxy, and we fixed this guy's knife for him, and just handed it back to him. He couldn't believe it. And he wanted to know how much do I owe you? And I said, nothing. That's part of our warranty. And it's kind of a shock to a lot of people because good customer service is really hard to find now, and that's the most important thing to me, is taking care of our customers. So.
Well, and another part of this warranty is a lifetime of sharpening. I'm trying to keep a good edge on my knife, but I need to stop by that showroom and have you guys touch it up. Kris Duerson of Rapid River Knives, congrats on the cat mount, congrats on the bear mount. I would encourage people to swing by the showroom on US 2, just east of Rapid River, and you'll see what I mean. The website, rapidriverknifeworks.us. That's rapidriverknifeworks.us. We'll take a break for the top of the hour. When we come back in our second hour, we're going to switch gears and talk about bow fishing in Michigan with Jesse Hurst of the Michigan Bowfishing Association. Chad Stewart of the DNR talks about the new deer regulations, and Chief Dave Shaw of the Law Enforcement Division on the concept of riparian rights. This is kind of a tricky one in Hour 2 of Outdoor Magazine.
Time now for Michigan's #1 outdoor radio show, Mike Avery's Outdoor Magazine. Mike Avery has covered the outdoors in Michigan for more than 4 decades, and that tradition continues today. Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Jay's Sporting Goods, the Eider Insurance Group, Angler Quest Pontoons and Polar Craft Boats, The Forward Corporation, Primal Outdoors, Security Credit Union, Garber Chevrolet, Brenton USA Hunting Rifles, and by Michigan Brand Meats. Now, here's Mike Avery.
Indeed, this is the big guy, Mike Avery, and welcome to hour number 2 of this week's Outdoor Magazine radio show. Here on the Outdoor Magazine radio network, on more than 30 radio stations across the great state of Michigan. Yes, indeed, this is, first and foremost, a radio show. And I say that every week, maybe for my own benefit. Maybe nobody else cares. In fact, I suspect nobody. I suspect you don't care. But I feel the need to make this distinction there between a radio show and a podcast. This radio show goes out over the airwaves on more than 30 stations across the state. And I think the best way to listen, if you can, is on your local AM or FM radio station. Because you get your local news and weather and sports, and the radio stations get the content of the show before the podcast version is uploaded. Yes, there is a podcast version of this radio show. I love podcasting. I think podcasting is a great way to get the message out, a great way to get your story out, a great way to tell a story, to educate people, inform people, entertain people. Podcasting is great. You can take the phone out of your pocket and produce a podcast and upload it, and you're good to go. But, there aren't many syndicated 3-hour outdoor radio shows even in the country. So I'm kind of glad of what we've accomplished here. If you want to listen to the podcast version of the show because you can't listen to it on your local AM or FM station, maybe they don't carry all 3 hours, or you live in some part of our state not covered by the broadcast signal, you can hear the podcast on my website, MikeAveryOutdoors.com, on my Facebook page. It's on all of the different podcasting platforms, Amazon, Audible, Google Play, iHeartRadio, SoundCloud, Spotify, yada, 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 yada. I even put it up on YouTube. As I say, though, I do like podcasting. And each month I produce podcasts for several of my advertising partners, including Offshore Tackle, Polar Craft Boats, Primal Outdoors, and Angler Quest Boats. And when we're done here in the studio, we will record this month's Angler Quest podcast. In fact, it'll be with a guy named Scott Hahn, who won the first Angler Quest Owners Tournament on Saginaw Bay. So we'll talk more about that and a lot of other topics as well. Regardless, though, of how you are hearing my voice or when you are hearing my voice, I do certainly appreciate it. Thank you very, very much. And also a happy Father's Day weekend to you as well, huh? Hope you get a chance to do what it is you want this Father's Day weekend. And maybe it'll be bow fishing. Bow fishing to me is a very, very interesting concept. We used to call it carp shooting. You might know it as carp shooting. Because, that's how most people get started in the sport of bow fishing, by shooting carp. But there's a lot more involved in it, and it's become a very, very big activity, not just here in the North Country, but all across the country. Here in Michigan, we have an organization called the Bowfishing Association of Michigan. It's bowfishbam.com. Jesse Hurst is the president of that group, and he's with us now on the Outdoor Magazine phone line. Jesse, welcome back to the show. How are you?
Hey, good morning, Mike.
So tell me a little bit more about bow fishing. I mean, the appeal of the sport, it's growing like crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, it's definitely not slowing down anything. I think it's getting bigger and bigger each year. I mean, it's quite an easy thing to get into. It's something to get the kids into outdoors, and kind of, it's a good way to manage, like the whole aspect of hunting and fishing, and, together, and being on the water and outdoors. So.
Well, and one of the big things I think about bow fishing is you're going to launch more arrows in one bow fishing trip than you are several seasons of bow hunting for deer. There's more action.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, oh, yeah, for sure.
So you mentioned it's easy to get started. How do you get started? What do you need to get started in bow fishing?
I mean, there's lots of companies that make stuff, AMS being one of the easier, bigger companies to get into as far as gear and stuff. But I mean, a lot of people just start mostly with, hand-me-down hunting bows from their family, their dad,
Other people go to garage sales, pick up some cheaper bows, and you can rig them out, lots of different ways. Some people even get into spearing, when they first get going, spearing suckers, or spearing, multiple kinds of fish off the boats and stuff when they're spawning.
Sure. And
yeah.
Springtime, I mean, I used to think of this as just a springtime activity because the fish were in the shallows, but you guys are shooting pretty much all summer long now, aren't you?
Yeah, we can. I mean, there's some guys can even, depending on your setups and your drive. I mean, you can shoot fish up until ice off or ice on. I mean, there's multiple places to look for them. They're everywhere. We got multiple species that we can go after as far as the rough fish goes. And I mean, Michigan being the state full of plenty of good areas for it to do it. Waterways and accessibility is key. So.
I mentioned carp shooting. I think that's most popular fish. It's a big fish. They're easy to find. But what are some of the other fish you can shoot, Jesse?
There's suckers. You can even do the bullheads. You can even do catfish. There's just the catfish that it's being a sport fish. There's still numbers. You got to watch your limits. There's plenty of other things as far as like gar. There's long nose, short nose. Then you got drum. You believe even got grass carp in there in Michigan. Some people don't know that. They're another invasive we've got that we're trying to crack down on.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. People say, we don't have invasive carp in Michigan. Yeah, we do. We got grass carp. They've been here for a long time, and they are an invasive carp. They are a type of Asian carp. So I'm glad you guys are out there shooting them.
Yep. Yeah, we're trying to work more and more with the DNR about that. Trying to share information and locations and sightings and even fish that have gotten off, fish that we've gotten, just to kind of help with the whole information. Trying to collectively come together with information and help them with the studies they can't really do per se the way they're doing it, because we're obviously in areas they're not. We're seeing fish maybe where they're not looking. Mm-hmm. So that's another way to help out with the whole ecosystem we got going here. So
you mentioned gar, a long skinny fish. That's got to be a tough target.
Yeah, I mean, when they come in to spawn, especially like Saginaw Bay, they're everywhere, and it's a good time. They definitely are harder because, I mean, most of the time you're shooting fish, you're shooting a foot to maybe 3 foot down average. But I mean, the gar, they're usually right on the top, so it messes with you shooting a little bit, sometimes depending on what you're doing. But they definitely can be a lot more tricky to get.
You mentioned messing with your shooting. I've seen this when I've gone shooting before. It's you see the fish, but you don't aim at the fish, right? You've got to aim, what is it, above it, below it? You got to take into account the angle, the refraction of the water?
Yep, the refraction, you got to aim low. So where you're seeing the fish in the water actually is lower than that. So depending on how far depth down they are is the lower you need to aim. And it's like playing pool, it's like bowling, any of those skilled sports, just the more you do it, the better you get at it. And we don't use sights, so it's just an instinctive thing that after a while it's just repetition. You get used to aiming lower and lower, and that's probably one of the biggest. Finding the fish is one thing, but hitting them is the next.
Yeah, especially for beginning shooters, like you say. Once you've been doing it for a while, it becomes second nature. But man, it was hard for me to figure that out at first. You also said you don't use sights. Talk to me more about the gear. I've always thought that an old recurve would be a great bow fishing bow.
Yeah, I mean, in general, anything roughly 30 pounds and up. I mean, depending on which fish you're shooting at. If you're shooting at a bigger carp, they got bigger scales. You got to have a little bit more poundage to get into them. Pretty good to actually get them. I mean, you can hit them, but to actually get a good grab, But I mean, in general, really anything will work. It's just you got to also think too. You don't want to use a hunting bow cranked up to 60 pounds. If you miss a fish, now you're jammed in the roots or whatever to get your arrow back. So, I mean, like I say, anything that kids can get a hold of or people can get a hold of, they're comfortable with. That's roughly 30 to 40 pounds. I mean, even some of the lever bows like the Oneidas and that kind of stuff, you can crank them down lower because they have more kinetic energy, just the way the bows work. Mm-hmm. But
Well, you said you don't want to use your hunting bow because you don't want to stick the arrow into the mud or rocks or whatever. Also, I don't want to take my $1,000 hunting bow out there in a bow fishing rig and get it all covered with slime and eggs and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, back in the day, as you're getting into stuff, there's, kids, they may only have one bow. It's their hunting bow. So you can rig them up both ways. But yeah, like you say, they get tossed around on the bottom of the boat. You don't want to bang them all up and potentially break something. Bow fishing can be a little hard on things. And depending on your situation, whether you're tournament fishing or you're just getting into it, there's a lot of things that go into it. But it's better to have a boat that's kind of dedicated for it. Yeah. That we don't worry about adjusting the sights, taking sights on and off, adjusting poundages. You can kind of rig it up just for bow fishing.
Well, you're going to see a lot of action. You're going to see a lot of action bow fishing, that's for sure. We're talking with Jesse Hurst. He's the president of the Michigan Bowfishing Association. Their website is bowfishbam.com. That's bowfishbam.com. We just had the national or the world, I don't know what it was, but it's a huge bow fishing event here in Michigan not too long ago. There are other events coming up that you can get a chance to see what this sport is all about. I would encourage you to check out their website, bowfishbam.com. We'll take a break here on the Outdoor Magazine Show. When we come back, I want to talk more with Jesse, again, about how to get started, the gear you use. Where do you go? Do you shoot in the daylight? Is it a nighttime activity only? And then we'll follow this up with Chad Stewart of the DNR talking about new deer hunting regulations for this fall. And then the chief of the DNR Law Enforcement Division, Dave Shaw, joins me to talk about riparian rights. We'll learn more about that at the end of Hour 2 of this week's Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine Show in Sheboygan on Big Country Gold, WCBY. That's 1240 AM, 100.7 FM. You can hear us in Sandusky on WMIC, 660 AM, 95.3 FM. And you can hear us north of the bridge in Marquette on WDMJ, 1320 AM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Reeder Landscaping. Reeder can take care of your lawn and property because it's your nature and our nurture. Let Reeder create an outdoor getaway in your backyard, as they have for me, actually. Some things to keep in mind right now. Number one, we are still in drought conditions, so your lawn might be drying up, so make sure you keep an eye on that. The folks at Reeder also said they want you to think about spending more time in the great outdoors. Spend the day entertaining your guests on your custom patio, cooking up brats on the built-in grill, and keep it going after dark because they've got some great lighting scenarios, some lighting projects as well. Reeder is like your one-stop shop. They can come out to your place. They can help you come up with a concept. They can design it. They can build it. They can maintain it. Why go up north when you've got this beautiful potential backyard getaway looking at you out your back window? The folks at Reeder can take care of it. Check them out online at reederlandscaping.com. That's reederlandscaping.com. While you are online, please check out my website, MikeAveryOutdoors.com. And then head on over to bowfishbam.com. Bowfishbam is the website of the Bowfishing Association of Michigan. Jesse Hurst is the president of that group. Jesse, how did you get into bow fishing? How long have you been doing this?
Oh, it's been a long time. I'm not even positive. It's been probably a good 15, 20 years when I got started into like the spearing aspect of it. We noticed some fish, found out they were legal to spear. I think it might have been some gar up on our lake up north, and from there you got into getting a bow, getting it set up. Just progressed into all the way till now into the tournament fishing and stuff. It's definitely been a long ride, but it's been a fun one.
Where do you find fish? You mentioned Saginaw Bay earlier. I mean, are we talking Great Lakes? Are we talking inland lakes? Are we talking rivers? Where do you go?
Yeah, I mean, pretty much any body of water in Michigan, as long as it's not private and you've got permission, and it, you just have to just kind of get out there, see what's there, and know the other big thing is fish identification, is knowing what you're shooting at. Obviously, there's a lot of fish that we can't shoot at. But I mean, depending on what body of water you're on, there's going to be multiple species on every body. You're going to have suckers, and anything that's moving water, you're going to have suckers. And usually, if it's more of like a boggy kind of more of like the backwater kind of stuff, there'll be more carp and there'll be more dogfish, pretty much on all of that, So it goes a little bit of exploring. Obviously, is going to be a key too. But
are we talking daytime shooting or nighttime?
You do either way. I mean, a lot of us that do it a lot, we usually go out at night just because you got most of the water to yourselves. Obviously, the fishing is pretty much to a minimum. There's still some catfishing going on, but at night you just get some lights in the generator and you go out there and light them up at night. It's a lot more. Usually it's cooler. Usually it's a little bit better, calmer. There's a lot more. There's some positive things with being at night, but then you got to deal with the bugs too. But during the day, I mean, obviously that's more of a little bit cheaper rather than having the lights in the generator and stuff during the day. You have a lot less. More minimal setup, I would say, to go out during the day. So
you could go out during the day, or I guess you could do this at night too, but it'd be easier during the day. I mean, you could go out with a pair of waders and just wade the or shorts and wade the shallows and shoot.
Yep. What waded or either way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The idea of bow fishing after dark, I'm fascinated by. I've been along on a couple of trips, and it's like a whole different world. It's eerie in some ways because you're cruising along in the shallows. You see these fish. They're lit up by your lights. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's for people that haven't ever been. And then even back when I never had been, and I finally got on the first boat that was rigged up, it was just, it blows your mind, If you're really into it, it's a whole nother, I wouldn't say dimension, but it's a whole new world pretty much. You're out there doing your thing at night, and then you got this whole little lit up area to yourselves, and the stuff you see at night, you see all the same stuff you see during the day. I mean, you see all the birds, and you still see the beavers and whatever. But at night, it's just more of a solo kind of thing usually.
And I see some of these rigs, going down the road, these big bow fishing rigs, the generators and the lights. I mean, this has grown into a big thing. There are people who take this very seriously now, don't they?
Yeah, it's. I mean, no matter what, it's still fun. But then you get into more of the competitive side of things, and you start going to different tournaments, different states. Like AMS just had a big tournament over in Wisconsin. There's a big tournament going on in Kentucky. The Jared Ashmore Youth Tournament's going on this weekend. So I mean, there's a lot of places to go. It's in any state for the most part. There's tournaments to be found every other weekend, all through the year. So I mean, especially with Facebook, whatever, you can find tournaments that aren't very far away, no matter what, whenever you're looking. So if you wanted to get more into that, more of the competitive side of things, there's plenty to go to for sure.
Didn't you host a big tournament here in Michigan not too long ago?
Yep, we just had the VAA World Championships. We're here May 19th in the Shiawassee County Fairgrounds.
World Championship. I don't know. That sounds impressive. I would suspect it was a pretty cool event.
Yeah, it was pretty awesome. The weather cooperated decent. The week before, it looked like it was going to be awesome, and then the week of, it kind of changed a little bit, but it wasn't completely terrible. It could have been better, but we had 81 teams from across the country. I think roughly 30. Some were from Michigan, but the rest were from all out of state. And we had teams from Texas there. And we had teams from I think Wyoming. I think we had teams from I know for sure Virginia, Maryland area. I mean, there's teams from all over. It was pretty cool meeting some guys and seeing guys that you only see on Facebook for the most part. But it's a bow fishing family for the most part. Once we all get together, it's a good time. I mean, it's competition, but it's a brotherhood. It's a good thing.
I see pictures of those bow fishermen from down south shooting those big giant. Their gar down there look all prehistoric. I mean, they're huge fish. Have you ever had a chance to go down there and do that?
No, I have not. I've had a few buddies that have went. I just haven't been. It hasn't worked out yet, but it for sure is on the bucket list to go down there.
Oh, I bet that's it. If you're a bow fisherman, that's got to be like you say, the bucket list trip to go down there and do that.
Yeah, I mean those fish are so big. I mean you get up to 7.5 foot gator gar. They're 200 and some pounds, 300 almost 300 pounds. And they're literally breaking arrows off. Under the boats or. It's a whole. It'd be pretty awesome to be part of that.
But even right here in Michigan, I mean, we've got some monster carp. Those things are, they've got to be a pretty, well, for one thing, they're a big target, but they've also got to be a lot of fun once you get them on the line.
Yeah, they're a handful. They don't give up for the most part, depending on where you shoot them. But yeah, I think we at our last tournament there for the Worlds, we had one brought in. I think it was 48 pounds. I mean, that's anything over 40 is big, and especially for Michigan. And there's a couple youth records we got broke. I mean, yeah, Michigan is definitely a good place for bow fishing.
And we didn't talk about this earlier, but I guess we should explain a little bit more. So you've got your bow, you've got an arrow that's usually a fiberglass arrow, and then you've got some kind of a retrieval line that goes from that arrow back to your bow. So once you shoot these fish, you're hand lining them in, right?
There's the AMS, for the most part, some of those you're going to be hand lining a little bit more. Then there's other retrievers, more like a spinner style retriever. Mm-hmm. More like the Muzzies and some of the Zubcos even. They're more like a spin cast, not really more like a spin cast reel. They're just not open faced, they're a closed reel. Yeah. But for the most part, you set your drag, you can kind of fight them almost like a fish and pole kind of aspect with a bow. But yeah, whenever you're shooting one, back in the day, people used to use just regular arrows and then go chase them down. But nowadays, if it's hooked to your line, if the arrow's hooked to your line, it's considered a fishing device, with the laws and regulations. So, but
and you're not using broadheads. These are special tips that once they go into the fish or through the fish, they kind of reverse and they hold it on the head, right?
Yeah, for the most part, you have to unscrew a lot of them to release the barbs, but they're more like a wire barb or like in a flat metal barb. But they're not sharp per se, like the tip's sharp, but then the actual barbs, they're just made to hold the fish on. And then you kind of slide the fish down and you can loosen them or you can twist them and then you can get the fish off.
What do you guys do with these fish, Jesse? I hear that all the time. Why are they shooting them if they're not going to eat them? What do you do with them?
Well, we shoot them because they're ruining the ecosystem for the most part, especially the common carp. But we don't eat them, obviously. A lot of guys do food plots, or there's some people that come and get them for like organic fertilizer. There's a lot of farmers that put them on their fields. It's just they're great fertilizer, and they're really not good for anything else, especially the commons. But there's some people that actually shoot the gar, which most people don't know this, but even the gar in Michigan, they're good to eat. It takes a little bit of work to get them opened up and get the fillets out. And I've had them. And if you got the same water temps and the same fish, roughly the same size, if a walleye and a gar, I'd put them up together against each other.
No kidding.
Gar is actually really good.
Wow. I guess my point is, though, that these fish are not going to waste. You're using them. Somebody's using them.
Yep. Yeah, for a while there, we had to talk to the DNR and change some things. There was a rule or a law that didn't allow us, because with our tournaments, we're kind of, in their eyes, commercially harvesting them, which really we're not. But it fell into a gray area where we couldn't actually sell them or give them away because people could make money. So we changed it around with MUCC and got we got that amended, and got us where now we can actually give them to whoever wants them, whoever wants to do whatever they want with them. So
excellent.
But yeah, there's a lot of dairy farms take them. They mix them in with their stuff, put it back on their hay fields, and there's even some people that come get them. There's one guy up north, I don't know the guy's name, but he's come to all of our tournaments over by Saginaw Bay, and he takes a trunk full of totes with the carp, and he actually feeds the eagles and stuff with them. So.
No kidding. Well, Jesse, I always enjoy talking about bow fishing. I think it's a great activity. I would encourage people to check out your organization, the Bowfishing Association of Michigan, that website, bowfishbam.com, bowfishbam.com. And you've got when's your next shoot coming up, Jesse?
We've got one this weekend, actually, up to Thunder Bay and Fletcher's Pond.
All right, go to that website, bowfishbam.com, for more information on that. We'll take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine Show. When we come back, Chad Stewart of the DNR talks briefly about the changes in deer hunting regulations. Now, these were proposed, but I understand there were some changes to the proposals. I want to learn more about that. And then this week's Ask Avery segment, talking with the chief for the DNR Law Enforcement Division about riparian rights. What is riparian rights? And why are we asking this question? Well, it goes back to a case on Houghton Lake. More on that coming up yet in Hour 2 of Outdoor Magazine. hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Flint on Sports Extra 1330 WTRX. You can hear us in Lansing on WILS 1320 AM. And you can hear us north of the bridge in the Sioux on News Talk 1400 WKNW. This segment of Outdoor Magazine brought to you by Michigan-based Whack-'em and Plack-'em, a very cool and unique way to show off your trophies. You could use them for shoulder mounts, European mounts, for fish, too, as well, for details, or for your bear. I could use them for my bear I shot in Ontario last week. For details, check out the website, nontypicalinnovations.com. That's nontypicalinnovations.com. Whack 'em and plack 'em. Very cool concept. Michigan-based, family-owned. You know I love that. nontypicalinnovations.com. You could also use that for your whitetail, whack 'em and plack 'em for your whitetail mounts as well. And speaking of whitetails, we're looking at some new regulations for the upcoming fall season. Now, listen, I know the fall season's a ways off. I don't even want to think about it yet. But the powers that be who come up with regulations and rules and such have to do that, and they have. They've made some changes. Chad Stewart of the DNR along with us to talk about that. Chad, welcome back. How you doing?
Thanks for having me again, Mike. Always doing good here.
I appreciate that. So we had talked a few weeks ago about some proposed changes. Did they get approved as you folks had proposed them?
Yes and no. Some of them did and some of them didn't. And that just sort of seems to be the way that deer regulations go every year.
So what are we looking at, Chad?
Yeah, honestly, there's not a whole lot of major changes this year. So really, I think hunters can be pretty comfortable in knowing that we have some fairly standard regulations. I think it seems like for the second year in a row, which might be a record. But there are a few minor changes here. For one, starting in the Upper Peninsula, what we had is what we call our UP CWD surveillance zone. The main thing around that was a baiting and feeding ban in those parts of southern Dickinson and parts of Menominee County, and I think it even crept into Delta County. That is basically no more. So hunters can resume feeding and baiting in the Upper Peninsula CWD surveillance zone. It is still prohibited in the Lower Peninsula. So that's an important distinction. The other part is that the Liberty Hunt, which is that 2-day September season, which mostly youth participate in, but there are hunters with qualifying disabilities that are eligible. The bag limit has been increased in that season. It typically was a 1 deer bag limit. Now it's still a one buck limit for that season, so hunters can't take more than 1 buck. But now they can take an additional antlerless deer or multiple antlerless deer if they have enough tags for it. So they're not restricted to just one animal during that 2-day season. The other big change is in 19 counties in southern Michigan. We had pulled off antler point restrictions on the second tag of the combination license. So it was basically an unrestricted regular and restricted tag on the combination license. We just simply put that 4-point restriction back on the restricted tag of those combination license in those 19 counties. So what that basically means now is throughout the entirety of southern Michigan, the deer regulations look exactly the same. So it hopefully makes things a little bit easier and makes the hunting and trapping digest a little bit easier to read when it comes out.
Mandatory reporting still necessary this fall?
Mandatory reporting is still necessary going into this fall. We are making one change, and I don't think it's been really publicized a whole lot yet, but it is moving forward. That one of the big, rubs for a lot of hunters was the mapping function that asked hunters to put the dot on a map. We are changing that dot on a map to basically going to a township level. So now hunters will simply be asked which part of the county that they're harvesting their deer in, and there's less resolution in terms of putting that dot on a map. And hopefully that gives individuals a little bit more confidence in reporting where in the county they harvested, now that it's not necessarily a dot.
Yeah, I think hunters will actually feel very good about that. Chad, what about the concept, the proposal that comes up every so often of changing the opener of the firearm season to a Saturday instead of November 15th? What any traction on that? Is that ever going to happen?
It's tough. It's tough to think that way. I think it has to be part of the conversation moving forward. We actually presented some information to the commission moving back in April, I think it was, looking at all the different days in the past 15 years where November 15th started, whether it was a Monday, a Saturday, a Wednesday, you name it. And what we saw is that we really didn't see any change in harvest or participation. Basically, whenever that November 15th falls, people take off and participate. And I know it's an impediment to some folks when it's like a midweek or early in the week compared to a weekend, but the numbers just seem to even itself out over the course of the season. And then when you combine that with our surveys that show that we typically see 80% plus support for keeping it at that November 15th start date, it's really hard for us to recommend something that 80+% of individuals support, and we're not seeing any impact, based on seasons when the November 15th date starts. Falls.
Sure. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. Chad, I appreciate the update. We'll talk again soon. Chad Stewart of the DNR, michigan.gov/DNR, michigan.gov/DNR. We'll take a break. When we come back, we'll wrap up this second hour of the show with this week's Ask Avery segment. Coincidentally, we will talk once again with someone from the DNR. This time his name is Dave Shaw. He's the chief of the Wildlife Division, and we'll talk about, riparian rights. Do you even know what that is? You will after this segment coming up. I can guarantee it. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Houghton Lake on the Twister 92.1 WTWS. You can hear us in Holland on WHTC 1450 AM 99.7 FM. And you can hear us in St. Joe on WSJM 94.9 FM. The Ask Avery segment is brought to you each week by my friends from Security Credit Union. Security Credit Union loves to work with outdoorsmen and women, and they can help you with your next outdoor adventure. Check them out online at securitycu.org. That's securitycu.org. The way the Ask Avery segment works is this is your chance to get involved in the content of the show. You can ask me a question, or you can pose a question you would like me to ask to somebody else. The best way to get those to me is send me an email to mike@mikeaveryoutdoors.com. That's Mike at MikeAveryOutdoors.com. And that is what Cliff Moran did. Now, I first posed this question last week, but it's coming back up again. Real briefly, Cliff says, Mike, I'm in a Houghton Lake chat group. A question came up for property owners and homeowners whose property has a shoreline. Where does the property end? Is it at the shoreline or a predetermined amount of feet? Do they own the land under the water on the lake? Can boaters and swimmers be restricted from using the lake in front of a privately owned property? Well, I'm going right to the source. I'm going right to the head guy, the chief of the DNR Law Enforcement Division. Dave Shaw is with us on the Outdoor Magazine phone line. Chief, welcome back to the show. How are you?
Good, Mike. How are you doing today?
I'm doing real good. So listen, this is a very complicated, surprisingly complicated topic, isn't it?
It really is, and it's not unique just to northern Michigan. Quite honestly, our office deals with this very issue on all of our major recreational lakes, both north to south.
So what is it? Does the landowner own the land under the water? Do they own the water? I mean, is there a basic rule here?
Yeah, there's some basic rules on our inland lakes or inland rivers, for that matter. The landowner owns the bottom lands, the riparian, unless it's deeded otherwise. And again, how far does it extend? It depends on the water body, and a lot of these are determined by, a riparian survey. But generally speaking, on a pie-shaped lake, it's from property line to property line out to the middle of that system. If it's a drowned river mouth lake, it would be to the meander of that river. If it is a river or stream, it would be the same to the midsection, or if they own property on both sides, they would own all of the bottomlands. But with that being said, that ownership has some restrictions on the general public, and others type of uses are unrestricted for the recreational user or the public. And it comes down to another classification. Is it private waters or is it public waters? Houghton Lake, of course, is public waters.
So the landowner owns the land under the water, but they don't own the water, right? So somebody could, they could motor along or fish in front of somebody's house?
Yeah, they can. It's basically in water law that for fishing and recreational boating, they have all rights of use of that public water, including the anchoring. They call it basically the temporary anchoring. And that's different than mooring overnight. Mm-hmm. But the day use of that water, and that can include anchoring, that can include getting out and swimming, other types of public recreation. Now, hunting and trapping rights kind of uniquely are owned by the bottomland riparian owners. So, technically a person cannot anchor in front of your property and waterfowl hunt, for instance, even if they're outside the safety zone without permission. The issue that comes into play is, for hunting to be in violation of trespass, there has to be some form of notice, either farmlands, fenced or posted, and on water bodies, none of those pertain. So it comes down to verbal notice. A landowner saying you cannot hunt on my bottomlands. But for boating, fishing, and water sports, public water is utilized, even though it might be right out in front of your property.
Real quick before I let you go, on a river, can you then wade the river if you're in the water, but you're on the land that the private landowner owns?
Well, that's a good question you bring up, Mike. That would be determined whether or not that river was deemed navigable or non-navigable. On navigable streams, the public has the right to wade and actually exit upon the uplands of private property to get around a hazard. They need to immediately get back in the stream when they safely can do so. Non-navigable streams, a lot of the little small trout streams that go through private property, permission would have to be granted before you could access that water.
Chief, I'm glad I'm not the guy who has to be out in the field keeping track of all this like your people are. I appreciate your time. I'd love to get you back on the show again here sometime soon and just talk about this whole concept of being a game warden and what it's like and what your people do and how to become a conservation officer sometime when you've got more time.
I would absolutely welcome that. I appreciate your time, Mike, and the question is a very valid one. So, I would recommend on local concerns, maybe the district office, and talk to the local conservation officer that's probably aware.
Sounds good, Chief. Listen, sorry to cut you off. I got you. We'll go to the local office. Chief Dave Shaw of the DNR, Michigan.gov/DNR. We'll take a break for the top of the hour right here on Outdoor Magazine.
Time now for Michigan's #1 outdoor radio show, Mike Avery's Outdoor Magazine. Mike Avery has covered the outdoors in Michigan for more than 4 decades, and that tradition continues today. Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Jay's Sporting Goods, the Eider Insurance Group, Angler Quest Pontoons and Polar Craft Boats, the Forward Corporation, Primal Outdoors, Security Credit Union, Garber Chevrolet, Brenton USA Hunting Rifles, and by Michigan Brand Meats. Now, here's Mike Avery.
Indeed, this is the big guy, Mike Avery. Thank you, Ken Hunter, for that introduction, and welcome to hour number 3 of this week's Outdoor Magazine radio show here on the Outdoor Magazine Radio Network. I'm really glad to have you along with us. It feels good to be back in the studio this week. I was gone last week. Now, we didn't miss a show. In fact, I don't think I've ever missed a show. Have I, Charlie? I mean, I don't think so. No. Because when I know I'm going to be gone, we just record them ahead of time and we double up. And that's actually what I did last week. I did that to cover my bear hunt in Ontario with Ron St. Louis of Northern Wilderness Bear Outfitters. If you were with us in the first hour, you heard the story about how that bear hunt was in jeopardy because of the fires around Wawa and White River. And it didn't look like I was going to be able to go up there. At the last minute, Mother Nature cooperated, which is kind of weird because Mother Nature seems to never cooperate lately. And I was able to go up there, and I did take a bear. And it was a very rewarding and enjoyable hunt, and I really, really had a good time. But now I'm back home concentrating on Saginaw Bay walleye. So, what more could a guy ask for? A successful bear hunt? Well, first a successful turkey hunt here in Michigan, then a bear in Ontario, come back here to chase Saginaw Bay walleye, and then to be able to be back in the studio here, sit in front of this microphone and talk about it. God has truly blessed me, and I know that, and I am very thankful to him and to you for listening to the show, because if you didn't listen, there'd be no reason to do this. So again, I do appreciate your support over all these very, very many years. One of the things that I enjoy most about this is the opportunity to talk with a lot of different people. And, if I'm talking with them, it's because they have knowledge and they have expertise and they want to share that knowledge. So that's perfect, right? I get to talk about hunting and fishing and shooting and trapping with people who are experts at hunting and fishing and shooting and trapping, and they want to talk about it and share that knowledge with others. Jim Chamberlain is one of those guys. He's a fishing guide, charter captain from northern Michigan. His website is fishwithjimoutfitters.com. That's fishwithjimoutfitters.com. And he's with us now on the Outdoor Magazine phone line. Captain, welcome back. How have you been?
I've been great, Mike. How have you been?
I've been doing real good. Did we find you on the water today, or where you at, Jim?
Actually, we're just driving back from a trip we did this morning. We did pretty well out on Torch Lake this morning. We had kind of what we would call an executive trip where we had one guy with us. And we actually got to do some fishing ourselves today because fishing was just that good. You know how it is. You fish Saginaw Bay, and you have that opportunity as well.
You just had one guy on that angler quest? You and one guy?
I had my first mate, Adam, was with me too. But yeah, just one guy. He was a disabled vet. And
oh, nice.
He chartered the boat.
Nice.
Had a great time.
Good for you, Jim. That's wonderful. You talk about Torch Lake, and we've had these conversations before. Man, you fish some beautiful water, don't you?
It's awesome up here. I mean, we had a really interesting thing happen during the pollen time where we had no wind for happens down to Lake Erie with the algae.
Back up there, Jim. I lost you. I lost yourself for just a second. You had pollen but no wind. Pick it up again, please.
We had pollen with no.
I'm looking at Charlie's face. I can read. Jim, we got a bad.
I think I got you now.
Okay. So all right. So let's try it again. Pollen and no wind.
So the lake was completely covered with pollen. It reminded me of what the Lake Erie algae bloom.
Oh, yeah.
It was pretty wild. And the fish were really, really high in the water column, like 3-4 feet down over really deep water when we were doing that. So it was pretty interesting.
Now, why were they so high? I mean, if it was a bug hatch, a mayfly hatch, I could see why they'd come up high. Why did the water being covered with pollen allow them to come up high, Jim?
I think the minnows were up in it. That was part of it. And plus, we did have the start of the mayfly hatch, too, at the same time.
What kind of fish are we talking, Jim?
Atlantics and lake trout and a few brown trout, too.
Oh, silverfish.
Yeah.
Those Atlantics, I am fascinated by those fish. There's something pretty special, aren't they?
They are. It's a really cool program that the state has. I got involved in it because I went to Lake Superior State, and we were catching them up there in the late 90s. And just something I've always liked to catch. And, with me being a grad, it's kind of a special to me because of, it's where I went to school, and they still have a great program there.
Just curious here, and this is kind of a side note. Are you? Did you get a degree in biology then?
No.
Okay. I won't go any further then. I was just thinking
actually computer science.
Oh, no kidding! You're a geek. I love that part too.
Yeah, but what I do now, I couldn't stand sitting in the office.
Yeah.
So this is what I do now. I go out and take people fishing.
And think about where your office is now. You mentioned Torch Lake. Where else do you fish, Jim?
Well, Saturday we're heading to Drummond Island, so we'll be there for 2 weeks. And then we'll come back to Torch Lake, and then we will head to Grand Traverse Bay after that, around August 15th.
Yeah.
So we fish a lot of beautiful water.
I guess so. What are you going to be doing at Drummond, on Drummond?
We're going to be fishing for Atlantics up there.
In the river? I'm sorry. Tell me more about that.
So the mouth of the river, and then out in basically the mouth area. So 5 miles offshore, we'll fish there, and then we'll also fish way up the river too. A couple miles up into the river. So we're looking for fish that are returning to the Sioux.
Are they doing their spawning run right now? I don't know anything about Atlantics. Do they spawn in the summertime?
They spawn in the late fall. There's a bug hatch that comes through the power plant up there, and those fish return to go up to that bug hatch.
Oh, okay.
So they return right around this time of year. So anytime May, June, July, you can hit good runs of fish that are coming up that river.
Will you have to fight your way through the pinks this time of year to get those Atlantics?
No, the pinks come after. Nope, the pinks come after. So that's just after we leave. So like first couple weeks of August, those pinks will be up there. But the way we fish up there, we really won't hit those pinks. It's super fast trolling. Sometimes like between 3.1 and 4.0, and really high in the water column.
That's moving right along, Jim.
Yeah, no, it's cooking. So, but yeah, we'll have downriggers set 16 feet down, and the Atlantics will bite the free slider.
At 4 miles an hour, you're leaving a wake behind the angler quest.
Oh yeah.
It's like you're muskie trolling.
Yeah, it's very similar to that.
How did you get started in this?
And for the Atlantics?
No, just charter fishing in general.
Actually, I met a guy when I was in college. So it would be the first year I was in college. My buddy and I went down to look for a muskie charter at the Pontiac Silverdome. So I'm sure you remember the fishing shows used to be there.
Yep, yeah.
And I met Ed Patzer from Hollywood Charters there, and he had a muskie mounted. And we were just sitting talking to him, and he said he was looking for a first mate, and my buddy was telling him how I clean all the fish for everybody, and he offered me a job, and I took it.
No kidding.
So that was in 1998 that happened.
So when I talked about muskie fishing, muskie fishing.
I do.
Do you ever target them up north?
We see a lot of them in the Torch River this time of year because they come in to spawn. But, there's some regulations that really don't allow us to fish them in there. So they knocked the hook restrictions down. It's single hook, half-inch point to shank. And, they're really not catchable because they're spawning. They're not really thinking about feeding that time of year.
Gotcha.
But I think the most we've seen in our trip out to the lake, which is about it's about, I don't know, maybe a third of a mile up from the boat launch up to Torch Lake. We've seen 9 of them.
Wow.
Some of them are pretty good size, upper 40s. We didn't see any real giants this year, but in the past we've seen some that are, in the 30, 40 pound class just swim under the boat, and that water's crystal clear.
Crystal clear there. Yeah.
You get a good look at them.
Hang tight, Jim. We got to take a break here. We're talking with Jim Chamberlain of Fish with Jim Outfitters, the website fishwithjimoutfitters.com. That's fishwithjimoutfitters.com. We'll take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine show. When we come back, we'll talk more about Jim's business, where he fishes, how he fishes. I mean, he's fishing northern Michigan on some of the most beautiful, pristine water you could ever ask for. How cool is that? Plus, he's on an angler quest, which is a big bonus, too. More after the break right here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Ludington on News 97.98, 98.7 WLDN. You can hear us just up the road in Manistee on WMLQ 97.7 FM. And you can hear us over on the other side of the state in Tawas, WIOS 1480 AM 106.9 FM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Rapid River Knives. Here, you know what's coming, don't you? Here it is. That's the sound of my Rapid River pocket knife opening. I carry it all the time. We had Kris Duerson of Rapid River on in the first hour, at the end of the first hour, and he was talking about a couple of new mounts he has there in the showroom, a great big Michigan black bear, and a big record book, a Boone and Crockett Idaho mountain lion he took a couple of years ago. And it just adds to the experience that is Rapid River Knives. I would encourage you to stop by their showroom. It's on US 2, just east of Rapid River, to check out what I'm talking about. And, enjoy all the mounts there, of course, but then pick out a knife. Walk out of there with a knife, a handmade, custom-made, if you want it to be, lifetime guarantee work of art that's designed to be used. If you can't make it up there, go to the website, rapidriverknifeworks.us. It's rapidriverknifeworks.us, and you will see what I mean. While you are online, please check out my website, MikeAveryOutdoors.com. And then I would encourage you to head on over to fishwithjimoutfitters.com. Fishwithjimoutfitters.com is the website for Captain Jim Chamberlain, who is a northern Michigan charter captain and fishing guide, and he fishes some of the most beautiful, pristine water in our state. And I think, Jim, for some of the coolest fish in our state as well.
Yeah, it's a pretty unique fishery we have up here for sure.
Do you? I heard you talk about trolling. I mean, is trolling no matter where you are, or are there things that you do there that are unique in particular to your water?
Well, we do have times of the year where we'll perch fish, or sometimes we'll vertical jig for lake trout or cast for Cisco. It just depends on what people want to do, who call us, and we'll accommodate a lot of different things.
Well, all right, that's an interesting question. So when somebody calls you, do they say, Jim, I just want to go fishing. I don't know what it's for, so what's hot right now? Or do they call you and say, I want to go, for example, lake trout fishing, and I don't care if the lake trout fishing is no good right now. I want to go lake trout fishing.
We get both of those things. Most of the special requests come out of our busy season. So, out of the Memorial Day to Labor Day time frame. That time of year we can, change the boat out pretty easy to go do different things. This time of year we're kind of in, like a loop, like an infinite loop. We're just trying to put people out there and show them a good time, and we have the fish program pretty good right now. So, we don't want to change that and go somewhere else because, if you miss a couple days, things can change in a couple days.
You use the term infinite loop. There was your tech geek coming out in you.
Yeah, exactly.
You also said, talking about changing the boat out. You don't want to do it this time of year, but what do you mean by that, changing the boat out?
Well, if we're going jigging, you don't want 20 trolling rods on the boat, so we'll take them off. throw the jigging rods on, change some of the tackle boxes out. So everything right now is geared towards trolling. Doesn't sound like a big deal, but you don't want that stuff in your way when you're trying to go out jig fishing.
Well, it does to me. As a guy who, fishes and has a boat, it does to me. I get what you're saying. If you're set up for one program, keep it that way. When people want to change things midstream, it could be, I don't want to say it's a big deal, but it's a hassle you don't need.
Right. And, this time of year is not really where we're at. It's not really a productive thing to jig. The fish aren't really schooled up. Like I said earlier, we're fishing the salmon and steelhead and stuff that we're in browns. Most of them are coming between 4 and 12 feet down. So, how do you jig for that over 200 some feet of water? That's just not. It's not the right application, if that makes sense.
No, it does make sense, but me being a Saginaw Bay guy, the deepest I fish is like 25 feet ever. To hear you talk about an inland lake that's 200 feet deep, I can't even wrap my brain around that. I don't even have a frame of reference for that, Jim.
Yeah, it's a crater. I mean, it's just deep. Some of the places we fish, like some of the points, we'll have our outside board almost touching the point, and the boat will be in 125 feet. So it's just like a wall that comes down.
And forgive my ignorance, but I think of the Torch Lake and places you're talking about as recreational boating paradises. Do they get fished hard? Or are you the only guy out there?
There's some fishing pressure. There's a lot of bass fishing tournaments here. There's quite a few guys that periodically come out and target the salmon and trout, but it's mostly hit in the spring before all the people come up. Post Memorial Day, we fish torch in the mornings a lot of times, and then we'll switch gears if the traffic's heavy and go fish elk, because elk isn't nearly as popular for the boating traffic. And where our boat's at, we're on the Torch River, so if we go south, we can go to Elk Lake. If we go north, we can go to Torch. So it's kind of a unique place in that, with that setting as well.
No, it sounds very, very cool. Where are your clients coming from? Are they Michigan people? Are they people who are on vacation in northern Michigan who just happen to find you? Or are they coming from Chicago and places like that specifically to fish with Jim Chamberlain?
Yeah, there's, we get a lot of the people that are just coming up, into the area. Chicago's a good, we take quite a few people from there. Peoria, Illinois, Columbus, Ohio, which, as a Michigan fan, that's always fun, especially with the way things are going right now. It's, we've listened to, since I've been up here, and since 2014, I've had to listen to those people tell us, their side of the story, but now it's our turn.
Yeah, and they're in your water in your boat.
Yeah, but it's a fun rival. It happens all year, as many people know. But yeah, we get people from all over the place. We get people from Pennsylvania. In the recent couple of years, we've gotten a lot of people from Texas, which I find interesting that people from Texas have found us. And it's pretty neat to see people from all over the place. We take 4 or 5 groups a year from California. We get some groups from Hawaii every so often, Alaska. I mean, we've probably had people from all 50 states, honestly.
And what have you found out? How does somebody from Texas or California find Jim Chamberlain in northern Michigan?
The website has done pretty well. Because there's not very many guides up here. We don't have the competition that, most of the other guides, like in Saginaw Bay, I don't know how many guides are there, but, there's probably 30 of us between Torch Lake and, Grand Traverse Bay. So,
people might want to do something different, which is why I stick on Torch Lake a lot.
So why aren't there as many guides? Is it because it's tough to fish? Is it because people don't want to fight the recreational traffic? Is it because it's hard to learn the lake? I mean, why aren't your lakes just covered with people like you trying to make a living taking people fishing?
I think it's a combination of a lot of those things. I think somebody comes out on an afternoon trip and they see a parade going up the Torch River, and that could be frustrating. We embrace it. It's all part of the entertainment factor. I mean, to see some of the crazy boat ramp things that happen, and we see it all, and it's to me, it kind of adds to the experience, to have people see that, and we drive by the Torch Lake Sandbar almost every day, and people will think that, well, that's just a 4th of July party. No, it's an every weekend party. There's all kinds of things that happen. And, our boat will be out there on the sandbar on the 4th of July. It's something that my kids like to do. So we go out and anchor the boat out there and hang out with everybody and embrace the Torch Lake atmosphere and culture, I guess you could say.
And craziness.
Yeah. It's definitely fun. I mean, but you've got to be willing to embrace the whole culture of the lake. It's not just the fishing. We're the fishing community and we rule the roost. It's not like that. I mean, like I said, there's some days we look at the traffic going out of Torch River and we're like, yeah, we're going to Elk today. We're not messing with this today.
I just think it's cool, though, to be able to, take these bodies of water that are, beautiful, pristine, deep, clear, cold, recreational boating meccas and destinations, and to be able to spend time out there taking people fishing, making a living in these areas. I mean, you've carved out this very cool niche, Jim.
Yeah, it really is. And, I'm sure that it takes a special kind of person to carve that niche out. You know what I mean? We're not following the Lake Erie walleye mold, the Lake Michigan salmon mold, or the Saginaw Bay mold. I think a lot of guys would go with, a guy like you out on Saginaw Bay and say, hey, this looks like a lot of fun. And, they start taking people. Next thing they have their captain's license. Next thing they're guiding on the weekends, and then, that's their plan for retirement. But, I always laugh at the guys who say that because I'm like, do you guys know that this is actual work? This isn't laying back, drinking beer with your buddies. This is actually, real work. You were wore out at the end of the day when you do a couple trips a day.
I always tell people, I hear from people all the time, hey, I want to be a tournament fisherman, or I want to be a charter captain because I love to fish. I say, be careful what you wish for, because once you get into it, it's not what you think. Jim, listen, I got to let you go. Always appreciate talking with you. Good fishing to you. I'll send people to the website, fishwithjimoutfitters.com. That's fishwithjimoutfitters.com. We'll take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine show. When we come back, I might follow up on that thought and probably a few other things. And, of course, we'll wrap it all up with wild game chef extraordinaire Dixie Dave Miner. That's coming up yet this week as we wrap up this week's Outdoor Magazine. Yeah, I'm going to talk, Charlie. Charlie's looking at me like, you going to talk? Yeah, I'm going to talk. I've just talked for the last 3 hours. I'm kind of talked out. No, I'm not. That never happens. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Muskegon on WKBZ 1090 AM. You can hear us in Escanaba, the Riviera of the North, on WCHT 600 AM, 95.3 FM. And you can hear us in Saginaw on 790 AM, 100.5 FM. I'm in the studio of WSGW right now. It feels good to be back here in the studio after being gone for a week, by the way. I'm here with Charlie Rood. Charlie, appreciate you doing a wonderful job as always. And I don't know if you've looked out there, but since it is a really nice day, the crowds are forming. Is that a police officer? I think he's working crowd control. We've got so many people out there that the local PD had to come in and direct traffic. And it's all for Charlie. I walk out the door, they ignore me. Charlie walks out there, Charlie. It's amazing. It is. It's just amazing. I'm working in the presence of greatness here. Anyway, Charlie, appreciate that very much. This segment of Outdoor Magazine brought to you by Killer Food Plots, Michigan-based, family-owned Killer Food Plots. Rich Krizan is doing an absolutely wonderful job with Killer Food Plots. And this is the time of year. I mean, you've got this window right now, right? You've got a real good window right now in the month of June to get in your food plots. We did get some rain. Much of the state got some rain. Now, we're still in, technically, I think most places are still in drought conditions. But we got just enough rain. What do they call those $1 million rains? We got just enough rain to really help some things take off and look good. Putting in a food plot is not rocket science. It's not brain surgery. But if you've never done it before, you're going to be looking for some kind of advice, some kind of direction. Killer Food Plots can help you out. From soil samples to property consultation to property management to putting in the food plots themselves. Lots of different seeds, lots of different varieties. And folks at Killer Food Plots are really, really good at what they do. Check out their website, killerfoodplots.com. That's killerfoodplots.com. I think about myself, I grew up as a kid on a farm, sitting on tractors, pulling plows, pulling discs, pulling drags, hauling hay. And I never would have dreamed that in my adulthood or early old age, which is what I'm in right now, that I would have forgotten all these things because they were second nature to me for so many years. If I was going to go out and put in a food plot right now, honestly, I wouldn't know where to start without the direction of somebody like Rich Krizan and Killer Food Plots, killerfoodplots.com. Jim Chamberlain of Fish with Jim Outfitters in the previous segment brought up a very interesting point about people who want to get into the business of the outdoors because they love the outdoors. And this is something I talk about a lot, and I see this all the time. You love to hunt and fish. And so you think, this is so much fun to do on vacation. It's so much fun to do on my days off. It's so much fun to do on the weekend. I would love to be able to do this full time. And that's understandable. I get it. Believe me, I get it. But then to be successful at that endeavor, you got to work at it, and you got to put enough time into it that you actually might find that your hunting and fishing activities or time on the water or time in the woods is actually not what you were doing when you were doing it for fun. And I can tell you this. When you, say in my situation, I'm a licensed charter captain. I don't run paid charters. I run charity trips. And I do find, and maybe it's because I don't do this full time and I don't do it enough to have wrapped my brain around it yet. But I do find when I take people out on the water who have not fished with me before or maybe haven't, spent time on Saginaw Bay before, I feel that pressure. I feel the pressure of wanting to, number one, show them a good time on the water, and number two, catch them some fish. And it's not as much fun as going out with my buddies, smoking cigars, and not caring if we catch fish. I mean, I'm not complaining, right? If you can be on the water and teaching other people how to fish and showing the resource to other people, it's all good. I guess my point is when people tell me, hey, I love to fish, so I want to be a charter captain or a tournament fisherman. Yeah, I don't know. These charter captains running 2-a-days this time of year, get up at 4 o'clock in the morning, take a group out, come back, clean fish, take another group out, come back. It's after dark, get up after 3 hours sleep and do it again, do it day after day after day. That's a job. They're earning their money, that's for sure. Hey, I was successful on my bear hunt in northern Ontario near White River with Ron St. Louis of Northern Wilderness Bear Outfitters. I did end up shooting a bear on the last day of my hunt. Very, very happy about that. That bear is now getting made into bear brats by my friends at Michigan Brand Meats. If you want to see a picture of that, you can go to my Facebook page or go to my Instagram feed. And once more, happy Father's Day weekend. If you are a dad, I hope you get a chance to enjoy this this experience, this day, this weekend. Dad's an interesting job, isn't it? It's not as cool a job as granddad, I'll tell you that. So happy Father's Day to you. I hope you get a chance to do what it is you want to do. I hope you get a chance to enjoy this day, and just know that Dad's, you provide guidance, you provide hopefully wisdom, you provide direction, and you're a big part of the family. So God bless you for that. We'll take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine show. When we come back, we'll wrap it all up with wild game chef extraordinaire Dixie Dave Miner right here on Outdoor Magazine. Welcome back to Outdoor Magazine. So glad to have you along with us. I do appreciate your support. My website, MikeAveryOutdoors.com. My email address, Mike@MikeAveryOutdoors.com. Don't forget to check out our Wednesday night lives. We have tentatively a Wednesday night live set for this Wednesday coming up with Mr. Angler Quest himself, Brad Dupuis, Bob Ransom of Primal Outdoors, and me walleye fishing on Saginaw Bay out of the Linwood Beach Marina on Brad's Angler Quest. As I look at the forecast right now, it's calling for northeast winds all week. So I don't know if that's going to happen. If we can, we will do it. If we have to put it out a week, we will do that as well. Regardless, I will be doing Wednesday night lives every Wednesday night on my social media outlets Wednesday evenings at 7. Would love to have you join us. I also love to have wild game chef extraordinaire Dixie Dave Miner join me every week and help wrap up each week's show. And he's here once again. David, welcome back. How are you? Quiet this week, eh? Oh, we lost him. Charlie's like, I got to call him back. Dave is unusually quiet this week. Wild game chef extraordinaire Dixie Dave Miner, a guy who I've worked with for many, many years. You know Dave. He was a big part of the Outdoor Magazine television show. And if you ever went to Oscar and Joey's or the Old Dixie Inn in Birch Run, you're very much aware of him. He's with us now on the Outdoor Magazine phone line. David, welcome back. How are you?
Wow, my phone just went dead, just sitting there.
Gotta love technology, huh?
Yeah, hey, congratulations on a nice-looking bear.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Dave. It was a good hunt. I mean, I love bear hunting and the chance to see bears up close and be able to harvest one and come home. I'm happy all the way around. So I appreciate you saying that.
Well, I got a bear recipe for you, a nice comfort food bear recipe.
Perfect. What is it?
Well, it's a bear goulash.
Oh, yeah.
You know, it'd be good on a nice... Anytime, spring, summer, fall, whatever. So you need about 3 pounds. This is for a large batch, and this freezes very well. About 3 pounds of ground meat. And make sure you have whoever butchered your bear for you, make sure they get all of the visible fat off, You don't want that because it goes bad faster than the actual meat. You need a large onion diced medium fine, 3 stalks of celery diced medium fine, 3 large cans of diced California tomatoes, or if you don't mind it a little sweet, you could use Midwest tomatoes too. 1 to 1.5 pounds of elbow macaroni cooked al dente, and some beef base to taste. I like to put Hungarian paprika in this dish because it's kind of a smoky flavor, and I really like that. So about a teaspoon. Anywhere from a teaspoon to a tablespoon of that. 1 small can of tomato sauce, 4 or 5 cloves of garlic, salt, pepper to taste. I like mushrooms in goulash, and you need a little bit of olive oil. So take a little bit because the bear meat should be very, very lean. So you're going to put a little bit of olive oil in a pan and saute the meat up, you know. And you should not have to drain any of the fat off in it because it should be very, very lean. And add the onions, garlic, and celery. Cook it for another, say 3-4 minutes just to break that flavor loose. Add the tomato sauce and the tomatoes and the paprika and the base. Bring that up to a nice boil. And you want to simmer that for about 20 minutes. That should make that meat nice and tender, about like that. Stir it occasionally. And then you could add salt and pepper to taste. If you like, I would say grate some pepper in it. Give it a little bit of a kick. And when the meat is nice and tender, mix it with the pasta. And I would say mix only enough for the meal, unless you want leftovers. And then it freezes very well without the pasta. And then you can make new pasta and thaw the batch of meat out. It's to me, I love this. This is a great recipe for anything, whether it's venison or bear or caribou, elk, whatever.
No, that's a surprisingly. I mean, that sounds so good right now. It is about lunchtime, so of course it's going to sound good. But goulash, man, I haven't had goulash in a long time, and that just sounds really good. Like you say, it's a comfort food, even in the summertime. If it's a little bit warmer, it doesn't matter, right?
No, it doesn't matter to me at all. You know, we make this all the time, Terry and I, when we're cooking for just ourselves, and we love it. So,
no,
how big was your bear, Michael?
Big enough. That's what Charlie told. That's how Charlie told me to answer. Big enough.
That's good. If you were happy with it, that's all that matters.
Oh, I'm happy as can be. I'm happy as can be. And I went up there knowing that I was not going to hold out for a big bear. I went up there knowing that I wanted to shoot some bear brats. And basically that's what I did. And the difference is, you know, sometimes people will shoot a bear and they go, oh, that's a big bear, and walk up on it and say, no, it's not. I knew it was not a monster bear, and I intentionally took it anyway, and I'm completely happy with it. So I think that's a good lesson to people. You don't always have to shoot. Yeah, you don't always have to shoot a trophy or a monster or a record book to have a great experience, and this was a great experience. All right, David, and a great recipe.
That's the truth.
Yeah, and a great recipe to go along with it, and I appreciate that, David. We'll talk to you next week.
Okay. We'll do some fishing.
That sounds good. That sounds good. Wild game chef extraordinaire Dixie Dave Miner, a big part of the Outdoor Magazine show, as are you. And isn't that the truth? The experience is the experience. Getting out there, interacting with Mother Nature. If you are lucky enough to bring something home for the table or the freezer, that's just a bonus. And in this case, I am very happy. It was a great trip. Michigan brand making bear brats for me. Couldn't be happier. Website, MikeAveryOutdoors.com. Email address, Mike@MikeAveryOutdoors.com. And I will talk with you next time right here on Outdoor.